Alrighty, so first off, yeah, we're the presenters, already did that. So let's just go through the agenda of this workshop really quick because we lost 30 minutes. So we're just going to define some key terms. We're going to try and create awareness about the SDGs, like how can you do that? Just going to be talking about the impact of human trafficking and some true stories of trafficked persons. And then we're going to go to SDGs and how they connect to human trafficking, what efforts that have been, put forth to, putting a stop to this issue. So yeah, this is practically the whole agenda, the Blue Heart campaign, Labawi Academy, and so on. So let's start with defining key terms. So what is human trafficking? So human trafficking, as it says here on the slide, it is a criminal activity in which human beings, you need to understand that sometimes like we look at the numbers, we look at the facts, and we forget that these are human beings, these are people that are being bought, that are being harbored, and like so as to serve like exploitative purposes such as sexual slavery and so on. So what makes a certain criminal activity human trafficking? How can you identify it? So normally it's pretty obvious, right? But there are three elements of it, which is the act, what is done, the means, and the purpose. So yeah, next slide, right? So when we look at the act, it's practically involves recruitment, transport, like how are they put from their first destination, destination A to destination B. And then we have the means. Most of the times it's through deception. They're told that there's a certain job awaiting them, or they're going to be waitresses or going to be working in a restaurant, but what's really waiting for them is sexual slavery or child labor. And it could also be through a threat or use of force and so forth. So practically, it would be how it is done. And the purpose, so normally it would be sexual exploitation, slavery, or similar practices, and other forms. So the second thing we're going to define is sustainable development goals. I'm sure you guys know a little bit about those. Next slide. Yeah, so I'm sure you know a little bit about those. So the Sustainable Development Goals are practically just UN member states. They came together and said, how could we make this world a better place? How can we make it brighter, right? So they created 17 sustainable development goals that could, do that, including, no hunger, no poverty, and so on. This was going to be presented by my co-presenter, but we're just going to go through them. Creating awareness about the SDGs. We obviously know that we need to create awareness about these goals, because they're for us. They're supposed to make our world a brighter place, right? So, and as students, we're very important in creating awareness, because as students, we have this similar experience. We're going through the educative process, right? And through that connection, we could use our connections with each other and so forth to create awareness about the SDGs. And obviously the youth are a huge source to achieve these sustainable development goals. So one way to communicate is through art. We're just going to be talking more about that when I come to the Blue Heart Initiative. Because art is a huge way of expressing yourself, right? It's a huge way of communication and so on, right? This is one of the pictures that we took at Labawi Academy. So practically it's showcasing human trafficking. It's trying to show Depsit, the idea of human trafficking and what it is to them. So in our school, Labawi Academy, we had, sorry, I'm going too fast, am I? Okay, the next slide. Yeah, this is the image that I was talking about. Yeah, and then next slide. Thank you. So in our school, what Sophia Jamal was part of this project. What we were doing is that we were planting flowers. Like these are very small steps, but they could bring huge change to the world, right? And there was also fashion design team that joined, together to depict the effects of climate change. Um, and then now I'm just going to be talking about the impacts of human trafficking really fast, because we need to understand how much human trafficking affects the world in order for us to put our maximum effort into it, right? So it has impact upon individuals, right? That's the most obvious impact. What I mean by dehumanizing experience is we might think about the trafficked persons, right? These are the people that are deceived into going from their homes to other places with a much darker environment. So it's not only to the trafficked persons, but it's also to the traffickers, because they're stripping away what makes these people human. They're selling human beings. Human beings are not meant to be sold. We are sold. I'm sorry, sold. What the hell is that? Sold, right? We're more than money. We're spiritual beings. So what they're doing is that they're practically stripping away what makes a person human being. So it's a dehumanizing experience for both of them. And with regards to medical consequences, obviously there's physical assaults, HIV, and so on. I'm just going to go really fast through this because we have almost 11 minutes left. So there are true stories. There's one about Luisa Karimova. There's one about a person called Mary, and another of Kwang Nu, and so on. I'm just going to tell you the common points between these three women. So the first thing is that why did they leave their countries? They left their homes because there was some sort of economic or political instability. And the other thing was that they were always approached by the traffickers, because these traffickers know the places that are the most unstable. So they just go there and approach these people that see no future in their countries, and they deceive them into these processes, these um, like into entering this route. So the other thing is that they always look towards freeing other trafficked persons, because they understand the process themselves, because they've gone through it. They know what it's like to, to be sold. They know what it is like. They know what it feels like. So they want to free other people. So whatever experience you're going through as a person today, think of how you might help other people that go through that similar experience, right? So always understand these from these three amazing women. These are SDGs that directly, address human trafficking. There's Target 5, SDG 8, and SDG 16. I'm going to have to pass those because I really have to be fast. So the Blue Heart Campaign is a global awareness raising initiative set up to fight human trafficking and its impact on society. It's it's right there as it says on the slide, and it was launched by the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime. So it's one of the efforts that the UN put forth to stopping human trafficking. And other initiatives are the Polaris, were launched by the Polaris Project and UNICEF. Um, okay, yeah. Next slide. Like really, you should go to slide 21. Yeah, I'm sorry. Okay. So you guys understand a bit about the Blue Heart campaign. Okay, so what did Labawi Academy do with the Blue Heart campaign? So this event was held in Labawi Academy in November 29, before it was launched in Addis Ababa. So the purpose of the event, like that of the Blue Heart campaign, was to raise awareness about trafficking in persons. It was to raise awareness about trafficking persons and to identify the signs of human trafficking and so on. But we wanted to customize it to Labawi. So Labawi is a high school, and because we knew that we could be most effective if we reached out to other high schools, we concentrated on introducing the efforts of the Blue Heart campaign to high school students. So what are the actions we took? In order to put our plans into action, we started by doing a human trafficking art display. So yeah, next slide. Next. Yeah, so the human trafficking art display was, we practically asked other students from different high schools to submit a certain art presentation, to give us something to give us their definition of human trafficking in the form of arts. And it was a huge success. We had lots of people coming in. It was, their understanding of human trafficking was actually beyond what we expected, and it was really amazing. And we also did some presentations on human trafficking, and they were really good. It was really a really good experience. So you could see some of the presentations that we had there on the picture on slide 24. Yeah, right there. So yeah, we had, on the next slide, you could see this is one of the arts that was submitted by our students. That's another one on slide 26. Yeah, these are really good understandings of the, of human trafficking. So I'm now going to jump on to the importance of such joint projects. So practically, first off, before you even start such joint projects, you need to understand why you're doing it. I mean, first off, like if you want to start with MUN, which SDG are you most interested in and why? I mean, it's not just because it's there. You need to understand why exactly you're interested in this particular sustainable development goal. For me, it's quality education, SDG 4, right? For you, it could be something different. You need to understand what SDG you're most interested in and why. And it may not be an SDG. It could be something, it's probably incorporated in this SDG because it's so broad, right? But you could find a good cause that you're fighting for at a personal level. What do you want to work for? If you remember Louisa, Mary, and Kwang Nu, you saw how much connected they were to their projects because they passed through them. They were the most effective at their projects, right? You need to find an experience that you could, connect to, okay? The second thing is obviously you need to research and connect. After you know what you want to do, you have to know what exactly it is, right? You need to research, you need to connect with other people that are doing similar projects. You need to track and evaluate your progress. Where did you start and where are you now? And you need to take small steps for big changes, right? It could be a single presentation. It could be at your house. It could be at like your school, and then it could grow all the way to like going to other high schools and doing different, like it could go to like the UN headquarters, right? So you need to start by taking small steps for big change. And you always need to take that first step, because most of the times we think of doing these projects, but we're just reluctant to, because we never take that first step. We never, connect to ourselves at that personal level and ask ourselves what we want to do. So always take that first step and use the facilities that are available to you. You don't need to have a huge flat screen or I don't know, something else. You could just start small. You could just have a piece of paper and write some sort of poem and so on. Just use the facilities that are available to you. You could use social media. It's a very effective facility, right? Although I don't use it much, I'm sorry. And you need to pay it forward. You need to share your experience with other people. So these are some resources to get more information about human trafficking. Polaris Project, UNICEF, UNODC, that's a very important website you want to go to. Lots of information, resources on human trafficking. Yeah, that's it in a very fast-paced presentation. Thank you very much for waiting for me for like 30 minutes. Thank you.
If I could just jump in, first of all, hope everyone can hear me with my nice headphones here. thank you very much. And I know this was really, really stressful, but I appreciate you valiantly jumping in. And the good news is I actually have a number of photos from your presentation. I recognize a couple of them that I would like to share with you, along with a resource where we featured this Labawi program. So I'm going to try and do a screen share, show you a few photos, and then we can open up to a bit more in the way of questions. But let's just move my screen here. We'll see if we can do it. These were some examples that students made during their during the art show and the exhibit. Right, and I believe this was the first or second that you did. But right, they had different schools make, you know, students created different arts visualizing human trafficking. They set it up at their school, right? So lots and lots of different art. So again, this doesn't cost any money. This is something that if you simply take the initiative, you can organize that. There was someone from UNDP out in the courtyard of the school because they were there for a presentation. So there you see the students from the school. I know that guy, right? Again, wonderful school. So I'll quickly just go through this. But again, you can just see this is how the students organize their particular presentation. And then students had an opportunity to walk around and actually see the different art. Okay, there's our Secretary General. And the presentation. And then this was featured because UNODC was involved, because this is something that falls under their mandate, right? The United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime. The human trafficking is something falls within their jurisdiction, I guess you would say. So they were able to reach out and collaborate with a UN entity to be able to further promote their project. And the one other resource I do want to share, let's just make sure I get it up on my screen, and that is we created something called a story map. If you've been involved in MUN at home, you know we create these resources that are basically like multimedia resources around a particular SDG target. And this is the one we actually did on human trafficking. I might try and pull up this video here in a moment before we take some questions. But at the end of this particular story map, I'm going to quickly scroll through here. Sorry if you're getting seasick as the screen is jumping around. But at the very end, we actually highlighted the work that the students were doing. So, you know, if you're here and you're part of MUN Impact or part of this community, you know, really the reason to do a presentation like this is to just plant a seed for an idea of something you might be able to take back to your school. And again, the beauty of this was that it didn't cost any money, right? So the only thing stopping you from doing it is your own initiative, or hopefully now you have some ideas. So I'm going to share this story map in the chat. If you're interested in human trafficking, this is something that would be a really good resource to share. And with that, sorry for monopolizing, but I wanted you to see the visual images. And we do have about 15 minutes or so. So I'd like to open the floor, turn it back over to our admin and our moderators, and let's take some Q&A from students or anyone else that might be in the house that can share a bit more information. And in the meantime, I'm going to find a video that I'm going to share with you.
All right, great, thank you. So we only have one question in the chat right now. So if anybody has any more questions, this is a great chance, and our speaker really knows what they're talking about. So this would be a really great opportunity for you to ask any questions you may have. All right, we're going to start with our first question, and it's from Amaya R. from Sri Lanka. Would you like to ask your question?
Yes, sure. So, okay, so my question is like, I was a student presenter in session 2, and when I was just researching for my presentation, I just found out that majority of the victims of human trafficking are women. And during the COVID-19 period, those domestic violence and human trafficking rates towards women have increased by like 30%. And at the same moment, I found out that 70% of the corona frontline workers are women. So I found that really unfair. And I just wanted to know your opinion on this because like when you spoke, I thought I just wanted to know your opinion on this fact.
Yeah. Okay, that's a great question. So I went through like I thought, okay, so there were three stories that I was going to share with you, and all of them, like all three of them, were women, and what really was happening was that most of the times these women were deceived. Okay, so they might not really understand what human trafficking is, or like to the fullest extent, or they might not really understand the science of human trafficking. So if we could spread awareness about what human trafficking actually looks like, how traffickers use deception, we could actually make big change. And I think as a student, or like right now, what you can do is do as much as you can to raise awareness about this issue. That's all I have.
If I can add to that, I think you were reading my mind, because I think your point about there are lots of signs. There are many signs that kind of tip you off that something is not quite right. I know here in California, where there's a tremendous trafficking problem. So this is not a problem that just happens in poorer communities or in other parts of the world far away. It happens every place. And one of the things they started doing was teaching and training teachers to look for particular signs of trafficking. But you're exactly right. And there are different ways of people being trafficked, and also that people are often tricked into this. And so what I want to do is I want to share this video, because I think it sums up really nicely exactly the point that you're making. Again, another great resource, maybe to take back to your school and to share. Let's see if we can get this to work. Since my computer has not been the best, let's see if we can do this. Okay. All right. Hopefully you guys can hear. The vision in my mind. It's time for me to go. The reasons all around. I'll miss you. I'll miss you. I wanna see through my own eyes. Real life, good life. I will stand up myself for you. Don't let them kill
wish that I could go higher. All this brand new faith will make my way easier. There'll be no better days. I'm no longer a dreamer. I'll miss you every day, but we'll soon be together. Don't let them kill my faith. Can't wait another day. Don't let the devil stay. Can't wait another day. Here it's cold and I can't dream anymore. Drowned in the dark, I can't dream anymore.
Okay, so great resource to share as long as you have the inspiration like the students here in this room who used their creativity and found ways to share that with their peers. So anyway, I'll continue to throw a few links here in the chat. And we do still have another 10 minutes. So now would be a great opportunity to find out how did they do this specifically? Like what steps did they need to take in order to launch their own Blue Heart awareness campaign?
Yeah, okay. Should I go ahead? All right. So if you guys have any questions, you could just ask me. All right. So the first thing that we did was that we tried to find something that that we found the most connection to. Okay. So first off, it was really something that in Ethiopia, if you know, there are thousands of people, mainly women, that get trafficked to Saudi Arabia and are most often, they become housemaids and they're treated poorly. So it had a huge connection to us as Ethiopians. So that was our why, okay? And then we researched and we connected to the Blue Heart Initiative or Blue Heart Campaign. And we wanted to do something that had some sort of impact. And to do that, we hosted we obviously needed to know we hosted a like an art show, like I said before. And we asked different high schools. We went to different high schools and told them personally to join in. And it was a success. After that, we just continued on and we took that first step. As I said before, what really matters is taking that first step. After you take that first step, those connections you build and the research you've made, even if you might not have as much facilities as you would want, you'd always go all the way through and you could achieve these projects. Right, yeah, that's it. Do you guys have any questions?
School in this process? Were they, sorry, I'm here. Were they supportive? Did it take some convincing? And then once you decided to do that, then what steps did you take to get the words out, to get the word out into the community?
Oh, okay. So it was a bit hard to get the schools, involved because even though we went there, we had to describe the importance and stuff, but really most schools weren't really into the whole thing. So we had to do a lot of convincing, and then at the end, we got back some like 4 or 5 schools, and afterwards, we did presentations. That's one of the best ways we could get our word out, right? We did presentations. We asked people over to our school so that they could join these presentations, and social media as well. I think we posted some few pictures that were like these art pieces that were made by our students and so on. Yeah, these were the most important steps that we took. We connected with other high schools, and so on. That's the most important parts.
Since we don't have any other questions, if you want to share something on your presentation that you didn't get a chance to do, you can do that, I guess, because we still have some time left.
Yeah, we do. I thought I thought it ended at 2, and yeah, it was weird. Yeah, I guess I do want to talk a bit about the SDGs that directly address human trafficking.
Right.
So we have SDG 5, 8, and 16. Okay, so SDG 5 is achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. So there's a specific target 5.2. Oh wait, I'm not sure. Okay. Sorry.
Would you like Paulo to share a screen again?
No, it's fine. They're
Yeah, we
just
can do
slide
this.
stuff.
Okay, do you
Okay.
want me to share?
No, it's fine. It's just like there's 3
Okay.
slides, so it's okay. Yeah. So we have like SDG 5, like I said, target 5.2. It calls for countries to eliminate all forms of violence against all women and girls in the public and private spheres, including trafficking and sexual and other types of exploitations. So I think this goes back to our question we had earlier on. Yes, women are affected hugely by human trafficking, right? And this target in specific calls calls for for countries to eliminate these forms of violences. And then we have SDG 8.7. This is the most connected with human trafficking because, SDG 8 is to promote sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment, and decent work for all. As you saw, most people, go through this human trafficking process, or they get trafficked, and in the search for money, or in the search for some sort of work, because there's sort of instability or economic instability in their regions, right? Or they can't find jobs. So the idea is that if we could give these people employment, these people wouldn't have to go to these destinations. They wouldn't have to go through human trafficking. They wouldn't have to ask other these traffickers, to give them this employment, right? So yeah, normally they're approached by them, but they wouldn't have to even think of going to other countries or going to other regions. And then we finally have SDG Goal 16, promote peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development, provide access to justice for all, and build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. So this particular targets SDG 16.2 calls for nations to end abuse, exploitation, trafficking, and all forms of violence against and torture of children. So this, really concentrates on the exploitation of children. We understand child slavery, right? And it calls for all nations to end trafficking.
So we actually did get some questions.
Okay.
Do you want to answer them?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so Hanok, sorry if I'm saying your name wrong, from Ethiopia, do you want to ask your question and unmute yourself and just say it out loud? Hanok? All right, so I'm just gonna read it out loud. What are your views on how government officials in both the countries where people are trafficked from and the countries where they're trafficked to should interact with the whole trafficking situation?
Yeah, I was going to talk about that on the impacts of human trafficking, right? So the political consequences, one political consequence of human trafficking is border control, okay? So what countries really do, instead of trying to decrease, traffickers, and trying to decrease the exposure of people to human trafficking. What they do is they make it very hard for people to cross borders, right? They have very hard like policies and so on. So I believe that even though it's one of the best ways, border control is one of the best ways, it does have its consequences, right? One of the things is that because people can't go across these borders, they're forced to, talk to these traffickers. They're forced to be, smuggled into these countries, and therefore are more exposed to being trafficked. So border control isn't the best way to go. So I'd say again to increase their employment rates through creating new jobs for people, right? As I said before on SDG 8, employment is one of the greatest reasons, right, for people to get trafficked and so on. So if these countries could increase their employment rates by creating new jobs and so on, I think it would be much better. I hope I answered your question.
Okay, so we have another question from Bethel. Do you want to ask that out loud?
Yeah, sure. I can read it. I could just, okay, I'll just answer it, right?
Go ahead.
Okay. So quality education, thank you for bringing that up, Bethel. So SDG 4, quality education, when we say quality, right, the UN defines it like it defines it from different perspectives: psychological, emotional, through academics, right? That's what quality education is. So if we do actually care about the psychology of these children, then we would expose them to what human trafficking is, right? We would, within schools, not just high schools, like starting from like low grades, we would expose them to like the definitions of human trafficking, the science of human trafficking, like I just said, what they could do to stop this issue, to these sustainable development goals, right? So one of my true stories, I saw that on, wait. Yeah, Luisa Karamova was a trafficked person. She went from destination A to destination B. Again, she was trafficked through deception. So what she said herself was to stop trafficking of women and girls. We have to inform people about the full consequences of human trafficking and how to detect the signs. It is critical to start raising awareness about this in schools, starting young, so that they do not become victims. Okay, so if we're really talking about quality education, we would follow this model that Louisa gave us, right? We would raise awareness all around schools. We would teach them about it, not only for them to avoid human trafficking, but also for them to, pay it forward and tell other people about human trafficking. I hope I answered your question.
Okay, so I'm just going to read out the question. We have one more from Nana. And so I'm just going to read. Oh, can you unmute yourself?
I have.
Go ahead.
Okay, so in your opinion, which group of people should be reached out to first in spreading the awareness? Because as the days go by, more and more people are being trafficked. Thank you.
Okay, that is a good question. I believe that in areas, especially where there are political and economic instability, we should start creating awareness there. Because as I said before, employment and political instability is what pushes people to even look towards, going to other places, to other countries to find jobs. So if we could actually, create awareness in those regions, we would show them that what awaits them is a much darker, lonelier version of their lives. So I think if we start in those areas, it would be really good. And also, like I said before, starting from like going to schools and like teaching like children would also be really good. But as I said, political and economic instability, areas of political and economic instability.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you for your question.
Can I ask a quick question? How big a problem is this in Ethiopia?
Oh, it's a huge problem. I mean, what happens most of the times? What happens is that women from rural regions would, most of the times their parents wouldn't send them to school, and they would have to, even though their parents don't send them to school, they would have to bring in some sort of income to their parents, and in order to look for employment, these young women, are sent to countries like Saudi Arabia. And they would go through a gruesome process to even go there. Even if they make it there, what awaits them is that they would be housemaids, like thousands of people. And after they're housemaids, they would not be treated well. Most people would come back with lost limbs. They would come back with uh, they they would be raped, and most of the times they're not even given the freedom to go back to their house, to their houses, to their homes. And it's a very big issue here in Ethiopia, especially in rural regions.
All right, so this is going to be our last question. Naruni, sorry again about the name pronunciation. Would you like to ask your question?
Sure. So what is your idea about the people crises and wars in their homelands, and because of that they become refugees, so those people get trafficked. So what is your idea about them?
Yeah, okay. That's a good question. So, actually, one of the stories again that I was going to share with you was that this woman lived in an area that was highly affected by the Boko Haram insurgency. And what's happened was that she had no idea that she was being deceived. Okay, so again, it comes back to creating awareness. Like I said before, economic and political areas with huge political instabilities are one of the most important places that we need to reach to. Like like as the students, as human beings, as individuals, looking at other people being trafficked and transported and bought, that by itself is really just beyond explanation, right? So I think again it has to do with telling them what the signs of human traffickings are, going to those places, and raising awareness about human trafficking yet again.
All right, so thank you for so much everybody for joining this session. To the presenter, if you didn't share any links for social media or anything with us, so if you do have something, if you can put it in the chat so anybody can reach out to you from that place, that'd be a really
okay.
And let's give our presenter an extra round of applause for struggling through the horrible tech issues. Well done. We really appreciate your fortitude with
but you
this.
came through and you gave us a really good presentation.
Oh, thank you. That was just, oh, yes. Thank you very much, everybody, very much. I'm just going to send my Gmail account because I have no social media accounts. I'm so, yeah, literally, it is sad, but I'm just going to share my Gmail account to you guys.
So what I'm hoping is that someone who's listening to this is going to take this back to their school and decide that they're going to start some kind of Blue Heart campaign. I would really encourage you to Google Blue Heart and see what this UN campaign is all about. There are lots of resources online, but it looks like if you need a consultant, she's in the house right now. So get her email address and she can give you some tips on possibly how to do something like this at your school. Admin, you guys did a great job. Way to think on your feet and keep everything moving forward. So kudos to you. I'm going to close the room here literally in about 15 seconds. So with that, I think we need to say goodbye.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. And also make sure to join our tomorrow Sandbox Strand, SDG Sandbox. It's going to be so cool.
That's right. And the social hour. Don't forget that.
Yeah.
See y'all later.
See you all.
Should we pause recording? Yeah.